Your celebrity wife, in order to achieve the goal of divorce, actually drugged your drink directly. Then she threw you into a hotel room. Waking up the next day, gazing at that stunningly gorgeous face beside you, your heart was shaken to the core. The woman before your eyes turned out to be Kyoe Sora, the reigning top pop diva of the music scene today. Judging by the smell of alcohol on her, she must have drunk quite a bit last night. This was a meticulously planned setup. At that moment, Kyosora's long eyelashes fluttered slightly as she woke up from her deep sleep. But soon her expression went from dazed to shocked, and then she fiercely grabbed the blanket. "Who are you? Why are you in my room? What do you want?" By this time, you had already calmed down. You couldn't remember anything at all. Kyosora's beautiful eyes suddenly widened, and finally tears slowly dripped from those beautiful eyes. She remembered. She remembered everything. Looking at the glaring crimson smear on the bedsheet, you also realized what had happened. At that moment, the phone on the bedside table rang. It was a call from Kyoe Sora's manager, Yuko. She answered the phone in a panic and heard the worst possible news. The news of her opening a hotel room with you had already hit the hot search list, and the trending ranking was soaring. Just last month, Kyoe Sora had already been embroiled in a massive controversy due to his song plagiarism framing incident, and her popularity was severely affected. If the incident of her opening a hotel room with a strange man today was added to that, it would be a fatal blow to her. The image of the nation's goddess would be shattered, and she would likely fall straight from grace. "There are already reporters at the hotel entrance. I can't get up here at all," Yuko said anxiously over the phone. Hearing this, Kyoe Sora felt as if the sky was falling, and tears poured down. "Who on earth are you? Why are you trying to ruin me?" Hanging up the phone, Kyoe Sora clutched the blanket and wept bitterly. A wave of heartache welled up inside you. But you knew this was no time for sentimentality. You forced yourself to calm down, replayed everything that happened yesterday in your mind, and quickly figured out the cause and effect of the matter. Just then, Kyoe Sora suddenly stood up and fiercely wiped away her tears. At that moment, her gaze became exceptionally resolute. "So what if they want me dead? Do you really think I'm scared?" Saying this, she wanted to walk out of the room and face those sensationalist reporters head-on. Seeing this, you grabbed her wrist. "Have you thought of an excuse? If you walk out like this, you're really finished. Let go of me. Aren't you also trying to drive me to death?" Kyoe Sora stared at you with hatred and let out a broken, venting cry. "I am a victim too, but I have a way to minimize the impact of this incident." You stared piercingly into her eyes. Seeing you like this, a slight flicker crossed Kyoe Sora's eyes. "Who on earth are you?" Right now, you just needed her to hold onto your name. You didn't plan on telling Kyoe Sora that you were the husband of Yuka Yanagi. Besides, in order to conceal her marriage to you, Yuka Yanagi had long since found a way to erase all information from the marriage registry system. It was only because the fact of having a child could not be erased that Yuka Yanagi had resorted to this extreme method to cast you as a scumbag. That way, if you ever truly wanted to use the child as a threat in the future, she could also win the sympathy of her fans. What a vicious thought. "What do you want to do?" Tears still lingered in Kyoe Sora's beautiful eyes. "After we go out, you don't need to say a single word. I'll handle the media, and you must not show any look of surprise," you said earnestly. Kyoe Sora also knew that there were no other options left, so she decided to adopt a desperate, broken pot attitude, clinging to a last shred of hope. Besides, the man before her had already taken. The hotel lobby was already surrounded by countless reporters, all waiting for Kyoe Sora to appear. Whispers and murmurs echoed back and forth. "I never thought the private life of Kyoe Sora, hailed as the pop queen, could be such a mess. Is there any celebrity life that isn't a mess? But I'm guessing this guy isn't just some young eye candy, but rather a capital tycoon." With a ding, the elevator chimes sounded to signal arrival, and then the elevator doors slowly opened. The reporters instantly boiled over and swarmed toward the elevator entrance. However, when you and Kyoe Sora actually appeared just as they wished, many reporters wore looks of astonishment. How could this capital tycoon look so young? Yeah, and he's quite handsome too. Have the mega wealthy gotten this competitive these days? At this moment, your expression was stern, and your gaze piercingly sharp as you tightly held Kyoe Sora's hand, giving off a strong aura of intense protection and affection. Kyoe Sora tried her best to control her emotions, Although she still felt extremely nervous and apprehensive, her stunning face did not show a single trace of timidity or unease. "Miss Sora, who is this gentleman? Can you tell us what exactly happened last night?" "Miss Sora, what kind of relationship do you have with this gentleman?" Because there were simply too many reporters, some microphones were almost shoved into Kyoe Sora's face. You pulled her straight into your embrace. "Do you all know what respect is? Step back." You suddenly shouted sternly, your expression cold and carrying an inexplicable dominance. Several reporters in the front felt their hearts tighten abruptly and subconsciously took a step back. Only then did you look the lenses straight in the eye and say coldly, "I am Sora's fiancé. We have been together for many years." This time, Sora's career hit a low point due to the song plagiarism frame-up, so I specifically returned from abroad to accompany Sora. I do not believe Sora would ever plagiarize. I will investigate this matter thoroughly and give you all a satisfactory answer when the time comes. Hearing the word fiancé, Kyoe Sora's heart instantly surged with tumultuous waves. However, she still followed your instructions and kept her expression well under control, even hugging you tighter to project a picture of deep affection. At the same time, the excuse of a fiancé dealt a heavy blow to most of the media present. All of their sensationalist speculations completely collapsed on their own. Seeing the situation brought under control, you spoke up again. "I know most of you reporters have your own professional ethics and are qualified media professionals, but today I want to say this as well. To those malicious media hounds, I, Ken, will play along to the very end. Just try biting me." Having said that, you boldly led Kyoe Sora straight into the van that had been waiting at the hotel entrance. The echo of your final words, "Just try biting me," still lingered in the minds of everyone at the scene. To dare speak with such overbearing and awe-inspiring defiance to the media, just how formidable must this Mr. Ken's background be? With the van door closed, the whole world seemed to quiet down. Yuko had been waiting in the van and was practically stressed to the point of a heart attack. Although Kyoe Sora and you had returned safely, lingering fear remained. After a long while, she finally spoke up. "I'm Sora's manager, Tomoyo. Thank you for getting Sora out of this mess today, but are you really Sora's fiancé? As for this rumor, the fewer people who knew the truth, the better, even if it was Kyoe Sora's manager. Besides, given that Kyoe Sora had been set up like this manager also carried a high degree of suspicion. Therefore you spoke up. It's a surprise. Sora and I have been together for 7 years. It was my idea earlier on to make Sora hide our relationship. Kyoe Sora had only debuted for a little over 3 years, so Tomoyo indeed knew nothing about what happened before her debut. Although Kyoe Sora's mind was in turmoil, she now understood the purpose behind your words, so she could only nod along in cooperation. "Yuko, I'm sorry, I never told you about this." Tomoyo gave an awkward smile and subconsciously touched her forehead. "Since that's how it is, it's easy enough to handle. From now on, as long as we let the fans see how deeply in love you two are, with time the fans will definitely accept and even bless you. Then please drop us back first. Sora hasn't slept all night and needs to go back and get some good rest." You smiled slightly. A dozen minutes later, upon returning to that luxurious ocean view villa, you held Kyoe Sora and went inside. "You head back to the company first. I'll take care of things on Sora's end, you don't need to worry." Although Tomoyo desperately wanted to stay and discuss the next counter-strategies with you, faced with these words, she could only nod awkwardly. "Then I'll head back first. Sora, call me if you need anything." "All right, Yuko." Kyoe Sora nodded. However, just as Tomoyo was about to leave, you handed her your phone number. "Sora needs to rest. If anything comes up today, call my phone first." As soon as Tomoyo left, and only the two of you were left in the house, the emotional composure Kyoe Sora had maintained the entire way instantly crumbled, and tears welled up in the corners of her eyes once again. Kyoe Sora stared at you with tear-filled eyes and couldn't help muttering a complaint. Yet you appeared extremely calm. "Complaining to me won't do any good. Right now we can only play along with the mistake and run with it." "Run with the mistake?" Kyoe Sora's beautiful eyes narrowed in surprise. You pondered for a moment before saying, "There are some things I can't explain to you right now, but rest assured, I won't hurt you. Next, I will pose as your fiancé to make the media deeply believe it. How can you pretend? This lie will be exposed sooner or later." Kyoe Sora blurted out uncontrollably. "I can make a 3-point agreement with you. During the period I am pretending to be your fiancé, I will not infringe upon your life. As for the future, I'll find a perfect excuse to part ways. Of course, during this time, this matter is a secret between us and must never be known by a third person. Do you understand?" You looked at Kyoe Sora seriously. "As for last night, if you need me to take responsibility, I will never shirk it, but I hope you can look at the bright side. Both you and I were drugged. You originally wanted to say that Kyoe Sora was the one who kissed you first, but thought better of it. In matters like this, women always drew the short end of the stick." After a long silence, Kyoe Sora took a deep breath and nodded. "I hope you really won't hurt me." Seeing her agree, you smiled faintly and then left the villa. After making a phone call on the road, you arrived in front of a private club. Guided by a woman in a qipao, you reached the rooftop garden on the top floor of the club. Wearing a long dress with her long hair floating in the breeze, Yuka Yanagi was sitting at a tea table overlooking the scenery of the entire sea city. Seeing you arrive, Yuka Yanagi waved her hand casually like an arrogant queen, signaling you to sit down. Looking at this charming and alluring woman before you, your heart felt only a bitter mockery. To completely cut ties with us, you really didn't need to go this far. It does you no good. After sitting down, "What? Do you think I've lost just like that?" Yuka Yanagi blinked, her tone icy cold. You sighed. "I know you did this out of fear. Fear that one day in the future I would bring little Hina to hound you and ruin your reputation. But you were wrong. From the very day you abandoned Hina, before she was even weaned just for fame and fortune, I swore that for the rest of my life, I never want to have anything to do with you again. Remember, you are not worthy of being Hina's mother. Do you know how cruel the entertainment industry is? Everything I've achieved today." Yuka Yanagi's emotions finally flared up. You didn't get angry. Your expression remained calm because you knew this woman in front of you was beyond redemption. Glancing at the bustling traffic of Sea City, you said indifferently, "I came here today only hoping you'll agree to one request of mine." Yuka Yanagi immediately retorted, "Stop interfering in the lives of me and Hina. Hina has no mother. She only has a father." You stared unblinkingly into Yuka Yanagi's eyes, saying every single word clearly. Yuka Yanagi's gaze remained icy as she replied without hesitation, "Rest assured, I've long treated all of this as if it doesn't exist, and I hope you act like a man and never come looking for me again, even if you hit rock bottom." You nodded coldly. Having said that, you stood up, but before leaving, you turned your back to Yuka Yanagi and said, "Now, the only person who knows that my being Kyoe Sora's fiancé is a lie is you. I hope you can keep this secret. Otherwise, the way I made you famous back then is the exact way I'll drag you down from the heavens." Watching your departing back, Yuka Yanagi couldn't help clenching her fists tightly. Over the past few years, you had sacrificed far too much for Hina. Otherwise, coupled with those countless classic songs from another parallel universe, you probably could have swept through the entire entertainment industry long ago. But to accompany Hina as she grew up, you gave up 5 years of your own time. Yet now, perhaps it was time for you to make your move. Having been away all night, you inevitably worried about Hina, so you rushed back home at top speed. Arriving home and opening the door, you found Hina slumped on the sofa, her head resting on a throw pillow, fast asleep without even changing her clothes. Though deeply asleep, seeing Hina's little hands tightly clutching the pillow, you knew she must have been terrified last night, and a wave of guilt and heartache welled up inside you. You wanted to step forward and pick Hina up, but the moment you moved her body, she jolted awake. However, when she saw it was you, she happily wrapped her arms around your neck. "Daddy, you're back. Daddy had a little situation yesterday and couldn't come home. Were you very scared, Hina?" Hina wasn't scared. Big Yellow kept me company. Hina pointed to the orange cat leaning against the side of the coffee table, narrowing her eyes with a smile. Fearing that Hina would be lonely, you had bought this orange cat. And for over a year, it had become Hina's best little companion. "What does Hina want to eat for breakfast?" You picked Hina up and couldn't resist kissing her on the cheek. "Egg fried rice. All right, Daddy will make you egg fried rice." For the entire morning, you stayed home to accompany Hina while also pondering the countermeasures for what lay ahead. Until you suddenly received a call from Yuko. "Mr. Ken, I'm sorry to bother you, But could you please come over to Sora's place? Hearing this, you frowned slightly. Could something have gone wrong? Thus you once again rushed over to Kiyo Sora's Ocean View Villa. When you arrived, Kiyo Sora was sitting on a rocking chair on the first floor balcony, gazing out at the sea. Her eyes seemed devoid of light, looking extremely dim and lifeless. Seeing you arrive, Yuko immediately greeted you in an agitated manner. "Mr. Ken, I'm so sorry. I had no other choice, so I just had to call you. Sora's emotional state has been very low lately because of the plagiarism scandal." "Look, Sora didn't touch a single bite of lunch. I thought about it, and perhaps you're the only one who can persuade her to eat a little. Also, the recording for Gifted Voice is coming up in just a few days, and I'm really worried about Sora's state right now." Although Gifted Voice was currently a top-tier music variety show, it was also a notoriously harsh critique show. If Kiyo Sora participated in such a state, you feared those sharp-tongued judges wouldn't hold back their words. You looked at the untouched food on the table, nodded once, and said, "All right." With that, you walked straight into the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and without a second thought, prepared several dishes at top speed. Kiyo Sora, sitting on the balcony, naturally caught the aroma. Unable to help herself, she stood up and followed the scent into the house. "You made this?" Kiyo Sora entered the living room just as you were placing the tomato fish dish onto the dining table. You picked up a pair of chopsticks and handed them to her. "Have a taste." "Then I'll try some." Kiyo Sora took the chopsticks, picked up a slice, and put it into her mouth. What kind of divine flavor was this? How could this be happening? She couldn't stop. Since Kiyo Sora's body was already in a state of hunger, having tasted something so delicious, how could she possibly stop herself now? Just like that, going from initial reserve to finally wanting to drink down even the entire bowl of golden soup, Kiyo Sora couldn't get enough of it. Making Tomoyo, who was watching from the side, dumbfounded as she thought to herself, "Couldn't you give me a bite too?" Watching as even the green onion slices in the bowl had been eaten by herself, Kiyo Sora finally came to her senses, her originally fair and delicate cheeks instantly flushing a bright red. "Mr. Ken, as expected, you're the one with a way," Tomoyo said excitedly with a smile. After sitting on the sofa for a while, Kiyo Sora stood up and said, "Mr. Ken." Before Kiyo Sora could finish, you interrupted. "Call me Ken brother, so we don't accidentally slip up in public later." Kiyo Sora still felt awkward inside, but after a moment of hesitation, she changed her address. "Ken brother, you sit in the living room for a bit. I'm going to the vocal studio to practice some singing." Soon, enchanting singing drifted out from the vocal studio. However, as she sang, she suddenly stopped again. During this period, due to the plagiarism scandal, her creative inspiration seemed to have been suddenly sucked out of her body. She had been modifying this song for nearly a month, yet still felt deeply dissatisfied, which was why she kept stopping mid-song every time out of frustration. Seeing this, you walked inside, picked up paper and a pen, and began scribbling away. A few minutes later, "Give this a try, see how it sounds." Seeing this, Kiyo Sora was extremely surprised, not expecting that you could even write music. But she obediently took it and began to sing along with it. "You are the distant road, the lamp in the mountain wilderness fog. I am the child walking within your gaze. You are the bright moon and clear breeze. I am the hidden dream you ambush. Whether seen or unseen, I embrace you for a lifetime, and I will love the world you love, hoping for the smiling face you wish for. I am holding tightly to your hand. Please lead me to tomorrow. If you have ever tasted bitterness through my sweetness, I am willing to live as your wish." Wishing without hesitation to charge courageously into every single day of this prosperous era. As the song came to an end, the look of astonishment on Kiyo Sora's face grew even more intense. Yet right at that moment, a sudden rainstorm struck, and the sky far out over the sea flashed with lightning and rolled with thunder. Hearing the sound of thunder, you suddenly snapped back to your senses, remembering Hina. Hina must be terrified all alone at home. However, Kiyo Sora was still in the vocal studio and showed no signs of coming out. Since she was currently in a state of creative flow, you didn't want to disturb her. You hurriedly stood up, went to the kitchen, quickly whipped up a simple plate of egg fried rice, left a note, and rushed back at top speed. Not long after you left, driven by the thunder, Kiyo Sora also emerged from the vocal studio. Under such circumstances, remembering there was still a man in the house, she inexplicably felt a bit more secure. However, when she walked into the living room, she discovered that your figure was nowhere to be found. Suddenly, another deafening crack of thunder split the sky, making Kiyosora's delicate body shudder violently. Where did that guy go? Realizing that you really weren't in the house, a wave of petty anger welled up inside Kiyosora's heart. You promised you'd keep her company longer, so why had you vanished in the blink of an eye? With all this thunder and lightning flashing around, shouldn't you be staying by her side? But soon she spotted the plate of egg-fried rice, still steaming on the dining table. Taking a close sniff, it smelled quite good. Something urgent came up at home. I had to rush back first. Read the note you left right beside the egg-fried rice, making Kiyosora feel immensely pleased inside. It seemed this man was still thinking of her after all. Back at the apartment, the sudden thunder and lightning truly frightened Hina. At that moment, she was clutching Big Yellow and had burrowed her entire body deep beneath the blankets, tears uncontrollably streaming down. Fortunately, right then, she heard the sound of the front door opening out in the living room. Daddy is back. Not seeing Hina in the living room, you instinctively called out. Hina's previously terrified heart instantly ceased being afraid. She then poked her little head, whose hair was damp and drenched in sweat from being hidden away, out from under the blankets, with tears still clinging to the corners of her eyes. Seeing you step into the bedroom, Hina immediately leaped forward and threw her arms tightly around you. You held Hina tightly in return, your heart filled with guilt. Hina, I'm sorry. With that, you gently wiped away the tear stains from the corner of Hina's eye. Hina bravely shook her head. Hina hid under the blanket, so she wasn't scared anymore. You knew she said that just to keep you from worrying. Ever since Hina was old enough to understand things, whenever she got sick was precisely when she behaved the most obediently. You never understood why Hina was like this, as if it were an innate instinct taught by the heavens. But this also made you realize an extremely realistic problem. Once you started working, what would happen to Hina? For Hina's sake, you had completely transformed yourself into an at-home dad, taking care of Hina with meticulous attention to every single detail. But what about the future? You couldn't stay locked up at home forever. Daddy, are you gonna work? Right as you were pondering this question, Hina suddenly spoke up. Daddy, Hina will take good care of herself from now on. Daddy doesn't need to worry about Hina. Hina, do you want Daddy to go to work? You asked instinctively. Hina nodded vigorously. Daddy has to go to work to make money, and only with money can he support Hina. You little rascal, how do you know so much? You had never brought up the concept of work before, and for a moment you had no idea how Hina had figured out these things. Soon, Hina's answer unraveled your puzzle. I have a lot of good friends in preschool, and their mommies and daddies are very busy, so usually their grandpas and grandmas come to pick them up. I'm the only one whose daddy picks her up. So their grandpas and grandmas always ask why Hina's daddy doesn't work. And if Hina's daddy found a rich wife and eats what kind of food? I forgot what kind of food it was, Hina said in her sweet, babyish voice. Yet those words felt so piercingly painful. It turned out those parents at preschool had been gossiping behind your back all along. Under your comforting presence, Hina quickly drifted off into a sweet sleep. The rain outside still hadn't stopped, leaving your mind somewhat in disarray for a moment, and the phrase, living off a woman, kept echoing in your head. The song you wrote for Kiyosora had perfectly resolved all the problems that had been plaguing her lately, but at the same time, she grew even more curious about this man. Kiyosora suddenly heard the doorbell ring. When she went out to check, it was indeed you. Since the rain hadn't stopped, most of your clothes were drenched through by the rain, and your face was covered in raindrops as well. Seeing you in this state, Kiyosora instinctively assumed that you had rushed back in a flurry through the heavy rain, simply because you were worried about her. The thunder stopped. Why did you come back anyway? Kiyosora pouted her lips slightly. Don't you even know to bring an umbrella? There's something I want to discuss with you. You stared fixedly into Kiyosora's eyes, looking as though you had just made some major decision. Seeing you like this, Kiyosora's heart instantly tightened, and she hurriedly nodded. Come inside and talk. Sitting down on the sofa, you took a deep breath. I have a daughter. Kiyosora didn't process it immediately. Staring blankly with a blank expression, you solemnly stated once more. I mean, she's 5 years old this year, and her name is Hina. Kiyosora continued to stare at you in utter bewilderment, and only after a good long while did she speak up. What does that have to do with me? You took another deep breath. I know you debuted 3 years ago, so the company isn't clear about what happened 5 years ago. Since I'm going to be playing the role of your fiancé this time, why don't we just go all the way and add a daughter to the picture as well? Has this guy lost his mind? Kyoe Sora briefly suspected whether something was wrong with her ears. Not only was he forcefully making himself her fiancé, but in the blink of an eye, he was also trying to dump a daughter on her, and an illegitimate child he had with someone else at that. Wasn't this going a bit too far? Seeing that Kyoe Sora still hadn't started speaking again, you knew she definitely couldn't accept it right away. I know this request of mine sounds a bit outrageous, but I've thought this decision through very carefully. It's a fact that I have a daughter, and this matter is going to be exposed sooner or later. So rather than waiting until it leaks out to try and explain, it's better for you to just roll with the mistake and acknowledge her right now. Only then will everything else be easy to handle. Kyoe Sora still didn't say anything, suddenly acquiring a daughter out of nowhere. Who could possibly stomach that? After remaining silent for a long time, she finally asked, "Where is the child's mother?" Mentioning Hina's mother, you thought for a moment before answering. She passed away. Hearing that the child's mother had already passed away, a trace of sympathy welled up in Kyoe Sora's heart. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked that question. It's just, have you thought about how to explain this once this lie is eventually exposed down the road?" Faced with this question, you honestly shook your head. "I must confess to you, I haven't figured that out just yet, but I can guarantee you that for the near future, I'll find a way to keep the media from finding out." Kyoe Sora took a deep breath. "So, just like before, I still don't have the right to refuse." You nodded once. "Accepting Hina is the best approach right now. The reason you rushed back in such a panic earlier was because it suddenly started thundering, and you were worried about your daughter down below?" Kyoe Sora asked with delayed realization, though deep down she acknowledged at least you were a good father. You nodded. "Over these past 5 years, Hina has rarely been away from me." Unexpectedly, Kyoe Sora suddenly shifted the topic. "By the way, how are you so good at writing songs?" This caught you off guard for a moment, but you quickly remembered the song you had written for her earlier. "I know a little bit." "Just a little bit." "You solved a problem with a single song that had been plaguing me for nearly a month. I have to thank you for that, so let's treat it like a transaction," Kyoe Sora said, tugging slightly at the hem of her dress. "A transaction?" You were a bit confused as to what she meant. "Are you deaf or what?" "My point is, to thank you, I can accept you foisting your daughter onto me, but you have to figure out a contingency plan before this leaks to the media." Kyoe Sora shot you a playfully spoiled, scolding glare. Hearing this, you smiled knowingly. "All right, since it's come to this, you might as well just bring your daughter over to live here too. Anyway, my place is empty, it's not like we're short on space for 2 more people." As she said those words, even Kyoe Sora herself felt a bit dazed. How on earth had she suddenly made this decision? But in truth, this happened to coincide with your own thoughts. After all, since you were now playing Kyoe Sora's fiancé and living together, there would be far less gossip, it would be much easier to explain things to the media, and at the same time, you could better assist her. "Then I'll bring Hina over tomorrow." You smiled gratefully. Kyoe Sora nodded, then glanced at the quartz clock on the wall. "No other business. I'm heading upstairs first." "Wait, there's still one more thing I want to talk to you about. You called out to stop her." A fresh wave of tension gripped Kyoe Sora's heart, instinctively thinking you were about to pitch some other unacceptable and outrageous demand. "What else is there? Do you remember how you got to the hotel last night?" you asked, looking at her earnestly. Although this setup had been orchestrated by Yuka Yanagi, in order for Kyoe Sora to successfully end up trapped beside you, you believed Yuka Yanagi couldn't have pulled it off entirely on her own. This implied that there must be a mole working for Yuka Yanagi, right among Kyoe Sora's current inner circle. I don't remember clearly, but logically speaking, it should have been arranged by Tomoyo. Kyoe Sora abruptly realized something. "You suspect Tomoyo?" "Right now, everyone around you is subject to suspicion." You nodded with a serious expression. "Tomoyo isn't that kind of person," Kyoe Sora instinctively retorted, given how well Tomoyo had treated her over the years. "Since things have already reached this point, one must guard against others. I suggest I take over your daily living arrangements for this upcoming period, and your assistant and manager should not be allowed to come to your home anymore." Let me think about it. All of this is just happening too suddenly. Kyoe Sora still found it somewhat difficult to adapt all at once. Over at a private club, a stylish musician was sitting across from Yuka Yanagi, drinking and making merry. You could tell they were having a great time chatting. "Don't worry, leave this matter to me. When the show starts, I'll teach Kyoe Sora a proper lesson. It's just a shame. How on earth did the guy she opened a hotel room with end up being her fiancé? If he had been some capital tycoon keeping her as a mistress, that would have been interesting." The person Yuka Yanagi had recruited this time was Shosuke, a judge on Gifted Voice. He too had steadily climbed in popularity by relying on a sharp tongue, capturing a massive following of haters targeting mainstream stars. As for Tianyan Media, where Kyoe Sora belonged, the very purpose of making her join this show was to have her perform new songs on stage. New songs meant to slap the faces of those malicious critics questioning her plagiarism. Looking at Hina, who was still fast asleep lying on the bed, you reminisced about those classic hits from your past Earth timeline to see which one would best suit your current situation. Soon, a melody echoed through your mind, a song expressing how a person, having awakened through the freezing cold of a bitter winter during the beginning of spring, regretfully discovers that the person once beside them is no longer there, while simultaneously looking forward to the future. Though still uncertain, perhaps, this song instantly struck a deep chord within your heart. Picking up the guitar, you captured and perfectly interpreted the song on just the very first try. "I heard winter's departure. I woke up in a certain year and month. I think I'm looking forward to the future, but I cannot arrange you based on that." You opened a currently skyrocketing music platform, but as you prepared to upload the video, you suddenly paused. Drawing on your years of experience as a manager in the past, you realized that uploading directly wasn't the best method. Even if the song blew up, the artist might not necessarily become famous. Thinking of this, you unhesitatingly added a panda effect over your profile avatar to shield your face from view, and then clicked upload. After uploading, you didn't check any notifications or stats either. Closing all devices, you gently wrapped your arms around the sleeping Hina and lay down to sleep. At Tianyan Media, Tomoyo hurriedly rushed into the office of CEO Renji. "When did you get back? Why didn't you even let me go to the airport to pick you up? With something this major happening, how could I not come back? What on earth is going on with Kyoe Sora's fiancé? Has this person's background been thoroughly investigated yet?" The moment Renji laid eyes on Tomoyo, he launched into a furious tirade, chewing her out from head to toe. Tomoyo swallowed hard in anxiety. "I've already sent people to investigate, but this Mr. Ken's background is a bit mysterious. We couldn't dig anything up right away." "You couldn't dig it up? This guy surnamed Ken dares to boldly drop such harsh threats right in front of the media. Could he possibly be an ordinary person? As long as he has capital behind him, we can trace it." "In short, hurry up and investigate," Renji said through gritted teeth. After all, Kyoe Sora was someone he had single-handedly nurtured, and he had long since regarded Kyoe Sora as his own woman. It was simply because Kyoe Sora was still in her career's ascending phase that he had held back and kept a low profile. Early in the morning, after dropping Hina off at preschool, you arrived at Kyoe Sora's house. Fortunately, because of the flu over the past 2 years, whenever you went out, you practically always wore a black face mask, so neither the preschool teachers nor the parents had ever seen your real face. Kyoe Sora was sitting on the sofa scrolling through videos on Bilibili when she happened to swipe across that song Met that you had uploaded. Although at this moment she could never have imagined that the man behind the panda avatar was you, with no belted out high notes, no complex and shifting techniques, and no heavily adorned lyrics. The song unexpectedly captured and gripped Kyoe Sora's heart the moment she listened to it. It wasn't until the doorbell rang that she was pulled back to reality. Seeing that it was you, Kyoe Sora hurriedly stood up and opened the door. But seeing that you were all by yourself, she asked with immediate curiosity, "Where is your daughter?" "She went to preschool. I'll bring her over this evening." "I've made up my mind. During this period, I'll do my best to keep Tomoyo and my assistant from coming to the house." After a night of deliberation, Kyoe Sora finally made her decision. However, just as her voice trailed off, the cheerful voice of the assistant, Tomoyo, rang out at the entrance. "Kyoe-san, you're awake. Ken-san is here too. Yuka-san said Ken-san is moving in to live together, so she sent me over to ask if there's anything we need help with." Finishing her words, Tomoyo cast her gaze toward you, extended her hand and smiled sweetly. "Ken-san, I am Kyoe-san's assistant, Tomoyo." From now on, I will take care of daily life for both of you, so please take good care of me. Tomoyo's appearance belonged to the sweet type. She looked harmless on the surface. But your eye for people was sharp. Behind Tomoyo's sweet appearance lay quite a bit of scheming. You smiled and shook hands with Tomoyo. I appreciate your good intentions. However, the reason I came back during this period is to properly accompany Kiyoi and hopefully enjoy a bit of private time. Therefore, I will take care of Kiyoi during this time. You don't need to make a special trip over here. As soon as those words were said, Tomoyo's expression changed instantly. Immediately afterward, she put on a wronged look and pitifully looked toward Kiyoi-sora. Kiyoi-san, is there something lacking in my work normally? I am your assistant, so I naturally ought to take care of your daily life. Through these past few days of getting along, you discovered that beneath Kiyoi-sora's cold exterior, her heart was very soft. You couldn't help but worry that Kiyoi-sora would fall for Tomoyo's act. However, to your surprise, Kiyoi-sora patted Tomoyo on the shoulder and said, I'll explain things to the company. It's not that your work is lacking, but rather that I truly want some more private time with Ken. Hearing this, Tomoyo had no choice but to wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes and agree. Once Tomoyo left, you couldn't help but smile. I thought you'd fall for her act. Am I that stupid in your eyes? You dumped your daughter on me. Shouldn't I protect myself? The fewer people who know about this, the better. Kiyoi-sora gave you a side eye. Afterward, she sat down on the sofa, but soon Kiyoi-sora sighed again. To be honest, I have this feeling of being kidnapped by you. Clearly, I'm not familiar with you at all, and even was by you. But now I don't even have a chance to resist, and can only be led around by the nose. Clearly, a hint of slight resentment carried in her tone. But thinking of the craziness of that night, Kiyoi-sora felt her face grow a bit hot. She only remembered that the feeling was magical. We are ants on the same string now, you smiled. You're the ant! Kiyoi-sora subconsciously puffed out her cheeks, looking a little more adorable. Don't worry, I won't pester you for long. I also hope this matter gets resolved as soon as possible. That's good for everyone. You shrugged your shoulders. Let's hope so. Anyway, I've already prepared for the worst. Tomoyo, why are you back? Didn't I tell you to go take care of Kiyoi and Ken-san? Seeing Tomoyo return to the company so early, Yuka Yanagi was a bit curious. Upon seeing Yuka Yanagi, Tomoyo immediately put on a wronged expression again. I was chased back by that Ken-san. He said they want to have some couples time and don't need me to take care of them. Couples time? Hearing this, Yuka Yanagi had a massive headache, vaguely worrying that this matter would blow up sooner or later, considering how well she knew Renji's feelings for Kiyoi-sora. Pondering for a moment, she said, she ought to be taken care of in her daily life. Since he told you not to go, you just won't go? Learn how to make excuses. Understand? Later on, go over there again and have Kiyoi come to the company in the afternoon to discuss the recording issue of Heaven's Thorn Good Voice. By the way, keep your eyes open and see what's really going on between that Ken-san and Kyo. Tomoyo was stunned, then leaned close to Yuka Yanagi and lowered her voice. How come I feel like you seem to suspect that Ken-san isn't Kiyoi-san's fiancé at all? That possibility isn't ruled out. In short, just keep your eyes open. Yuka Yanagi patted Tomoyo's head. At Yuka Yanagi's request, Tomoyo came once more to Kiyoi-sora's luxury seaside villa. However, when Tomoyo input the password hoping to open the door and go in, she was unexpectedly prompted that the password had been changed. Tomoyo had followed by Kiyoi-sora's side for over a year and had never encountered this kind of situation. Why change the password? Could it be that in broad daylight, Kiyoi-san and Ken-san are doing things inside? Tomoyo's mind quickly conjured up adult-rated imagery. Thinking like this, she felt like she might be disturbing their life a bit. So should she ring the doorbell or not? What a headache. At this moment, you appeared behind Tomoyo carrying groceries. Looking for Kiyoi with something? Your voice gave Tomoyo a start. Ken-san, why are you so stealthy? Following that, seeing that you were actually carrying groceries, Tomoyo asked in surprise. You went to buy groceries yourself? Can't I? You retorted. Tomoyo immediately smiled awkwardly. I didn't mean that. It's just my first time seeing a tyrannical CEO like you actually going to the wet market to buy groceries yourself. Which vegetable market stipulates that a tyrant cannot go in to buy groceries? You said indifferently. After just a few sentences, Tomoyo felt her breath a bit constrained by your imposing aura. You asked again, is there something? Tomoyo awkwardly scratched her forehead. Not really anything. If nothing's the matter, don't come over in the future. What I said this morning wasn't a joke. You said coldly, then carried the tea and prepared to walk inside. Until you were almost inside the house, Tomoyo hurriedly called out, Ken-san, it's not that there's nothing. Yuka-san asked me to notify Kiyoe-san to go to the company in the afternoon to discuss the program recording matter. Got it, you nodded and said. However, just as Tomoyo was about to leave with a sense of relief, your voice rang out once more. Wait a second. Hearing these 3 words, Tomoyo's delicate body stiffened once again. She turned her head in a daze. Ken-san, do you have any instructions? Go back and have the company buy you a phone. What era is it that someone has to personally run over just to convey a message? Isn't that laughable? If the company won't reimburse it, I'll reimburse you. Having finished, you turned around and closed the door. Regardless of whether Tomoyo was connected to the previous setup, this display of dominance had to be given. Otherwise, she would keep running over day after day without end. Ken-san, is this domineering? After all, previously you were quite polite to Yuka Yanagi, so this time when Tomoyo came back to report the situation, Yuka Yanagi was very shocked. Yeah, Yuka-san, this Ken-san is definitely not easy to deal with. Even back at the company, Tomoyo still had lingering fears. Yuka Yanagi's head hurt even more. If she couldn't monitor Kiyoe Sora, how would she answer to Renji when the time came? Yuka-san, what should we do next? You ask me. Who do I ask? For now, don't go over yet. Let me think of a way. Your culinary skills, Kiyoe Sora truly had zero resistance against them. Even though she planned to eat with restraint and like a goddess, the moment she picked up her chopsticks, her goddess image instantly vanished into ashes. What are you doing, poking your phone at me? Finishing the last piece of braised pork belly, Kiyoe Sora raised her head and suddenly discovered that the phone in your hand was pointed right at her. Don't tell me this young lady is taking photos. You didn't take a picture of me devouring my food like a wolf, did you? Kiyoe Sora immediately widened her beautiful eyes, then snatched your phone away. Yet you, watching the suddenly bolting Kiyoe Sora, looked completely innocent. I was just scrolling through short videos. Do you have to overreact like this? Kiyoe Sora then realized that you were indeed scrolling through short videos and weren't taking photos at all. Scrolling past long-legged girls right in front of her. What was that supposed to mean? Weren't this young lady's legs enough for you to look at? This was truly going a bit too far. You men really are all the same. What's so good about looking at this? Kiyoe Sora threw the phone back to you, not forgetting to give you a disdainful look. You looked helpless. These short videos, in the day it's either butts or legs, and at night it's either food or ghosts. What can I do? As soon as those words were said, Kiyoe Sora's face blushed instantly, and then she hurriedly pulled at the hem of her dress. Pervert! Seeing Kiyoe Sora like this, you couldn't help but smile. Are you hoping I look at the screen or look at you? Not allowed to look at either. Kiyoe Sora gritted her teeth, then stood up, preparing to leave. Yet just as she was about to head to the living room, you also suddenly stood up, followed by your body moving a few inches closer to Kiyoe Sora. Seeing you suddenly draw close to her, Kiyoe Sora abruptly felt her heartbeat accelerate. What do you want? That night was an accident. Don't mess around. You pulled out a tissue. Then, in a situation where Kiyoe Sora completely failed to react, wiped the corner of her mouth. How old are you? And eating a meal is still messier than my daughter. Finishing that, you picked up the bowls and chopsticks and entered the kitchen, leaving only Kiyoe Sora standing frozen in place. What kind of person is this? Why is his mouth so poisonous? Emerging from the kitchen, Kiyoe Sora had already picked up a handbag, seemingly preparing to go out. You're going out? You asked subconsciously. Kiyoe Sora speechlessly gave you a side eye. Didn't you say Tomoyo told me to go to the company this afternoon? So you plan to go alone, otherwise? My assistant was already chased away by you. If I call her back, do I have no pride? I'll drive you. Kiyoe Sora immediately looked at you in some shock. You're driving me? Is there a problem? Do you doubt my driving skills? Or are you worried I'll do something untoward to you in the car? You walked around. Where are the car keys? Kiyoe Sora pointed toward an exquisite side cabinet. Seeing the car keys inside, the corners of your mouth couldn't help but twitch slightly. Truly a little rich woman. At least 10 sets of car keys, and all luxury cars. For a moment, you even had some trouble choosing. Kiyoe Sora stepped forward and took out the keys to that Koenigsegg from the cabinet. You can drive this car from now on. I just bought it. Nobody at the company has seen it." The meaning behind these words was also very obvious. Since people at the company hadn't seen it, if you drove it out, outsiders would think this car belonged to you. A 20 to 30 million car was indeed enough to showcase your status. "If I crash it, I won't need to compensate you, right?" you joked. "If it crashes, it gets thrown away," Kiyoe Sora said, then turned and walked toward the garage. Previously, the outside world all guessed that Hina had been kept by some wealthy tycoon. Looking at it now, it was clearly her keeping a gigolo. But one had to admit, the feeling of being kept by a wealthy woman was indeed not bad. That song you were accused of plagiarizing is also quite niche abroad. It's normal that you didn't notice beforehand. The atmosphere in the car was a bit stifling, so you brought up the plagiarism matter. "What do you mean by that?" Kiyoe Sora, who had originally been gazing at the scenery out the window, couldn't help but turn her head to look at you. Your gaze remained fixed on the road. "I don't believe you plagiarized. That song doesn't sound like your style. Someone must have given it to you," hit the nail on the head. That song indeed wasn't written by Kiyoe Sora herself, but rather written for her by a close best friend. Originally, for the lyricist and composer of that song, Kiyoe Sora had written her best friend's name, but somehow when the album came out, it became Hina's own song. You're being set up in a chain trap here. Have you thought about who wants to harm you like this? Kiyoe Sora blinked her eyes and said, "The entertainment industry is so deep. How would I know who wants to bite me?" "I only know that in the entertainment industry, as long as you fall into the water, everyone will inevitably help push you down a bit further so they can float back to the surface." "So in your view, everyone in the entertainment industry is bad?" you retorted. Kiyoe Sora nodded without hesitation. "Anyway, there aren't many good ones." "Then why on earth are you still in the entertainment industry?" you asked subconsciously. "If I'm not in the entertainment industry, should I run off to a nunnery to sing? Music is my dream." You're asking this. Could it be that you know who's plotting against me behind my back? Because Hina's matter was too complicated, you still didn't know how to explain this problem. You're asking me? As the person involved, you don't even know. How would I know? Then can you stop acting like you know everything? Kiyoe Sora couldn't help but give you another side eye, then cast her gaze back out the window. "Where is Hina right now?" Kiyoe Sora scratched her beautiful hair and looked at you impatiently. "How would I know where she is right now? I didn't install a surveillance camera on her." Now it was your turn to roll your eyes. "I'm asking where she's working right now." "Seems like she signed with Hwangji as a trainee and recently went to South Korea for advanced training," Kiyoe Sora said indifferently. Hearing the two words, Hwangji, your heart actually felt a flash of joy, because Hwangji had an old friend of yours. "Is there a problem?" Kiyoe Sora looked at you curiously. You smiled faintly. "Nothing." The car arrived at the underground parking garage of Tianyan Media. After parking the car steadily, you showed no intention of getting out. Seeing that you hadn't gotten out, Kiyoe Sora sat unmoving in the passenger seat, the atmosphere growing inexplicably eerie. "We've arrived." You couldn't help but speak up. Kiyoe Sora looked at you suspiciously. "Aren't you going to open the door for me?" "Open the door? What's wrong with your hands?" You similarly put on a look of suspicion. Hearing this, Kiyoe Sora was completely speechless. "This is the company. Can't you just get out and proactively open a door for me like those gentlemen in TV dramas? You think that behavior is a gentleman? Don't you think it's acting like a lapdog?" You shrugged your shoulders. "Besides, this is an underground garage. Heaven knows how you got down here." Finally, the corners of Kiyoe Sora's mouth couldn't help twitching, followed by a click. She forcefully opened the car door and angrily stormed into the elevator lobby. "Straight man! Feel straight man!" Once Kiyoe Sora entered the company, you stepped on the accelerator again and sped toward Hwangji Media. The person you wanted to find was named Shosuke, currently a well-known music producer across the entire Chinese entertainment scene, and also a true veteran figure of the industry. 5 years ago when Hina first debuted, the person you sought out was him, and Shosuke was also one of the few who had truly witnessed your talent. It's just that after making Hina famous back then, you dropped out of sight. Over these past 5 years, Shosuke never had any news of you, until the matter of you and Kiyoe Sora opening a room at a hotel was exposed, watching the screen showing you domineeringly rebuking those unscrupulous reporters while seemingly standing up for Kiyoe Sora. Shosuke almost had tears of old age in his eyes. Not only was this man overflowing with talent, forcefully raising Hina, who came from a rural background, to fame and giving her the achievement she had today, but his background was also unfathomable, turning out to be the fiancé of Heavenly Queen Kyoe Sora. Upon learning that you had come to find him, it drove Shosuke wild with excitement. He was in the middle of a meeting and directly called it to a halt, rushing into the company lobby. "Renji, long time no see." Although you habitually wore a black mask, Shosuke recognized you at a glance, hurried forward and tightly gripped your hand. Only then did you pull off your black mask. As the mask was removed, the Huangji employees who were originally in the company lobby were instantly filled with shock. "Isn't that Kyo's fiancé?" Mr. Shosuke, who is usually always solemn and unsmiling, was actually holding Ken-san's hand with both hands, and his entire person showed a rare flash of excitement. To be able to make Mr. Shosuke attach such great importance to him, it seemed this Ken-san's background was truly terrifying. You did not pay attention to these low-voiced discussions, instead following Shosuke to the office. Shosuke personally poured you coffee and then carried it over to place before you. "Renji, you disappeared for 5 years, and the moment you reappeared, you gave me such a huge surprise. When do you plan to marry Kyoe? At that time, I will definitely give a huge red envelope." Facing these words, you smiled slightly. "This time is also an accident. Nowadays, Kyoe's career is on the rise, and I didn't want to expose it so early. It's just that Kyoe was framed by someone and had no choice but to have it exposed." Hearing this, Shosuke was somewhat startled. Who dares to frame Kyoe behind her back? Your fingers tapped gently on the coffee table a few times, then you raised your head to meet Shosuke's gaze. "This person is currently right here in your Huangji." Hearing this, Shosuke's expression changed instantly. "Who is it?" Since you came to find Shosuke, you naturally had sufficient trust in him, so you truthfully replied, "That trainee who was just sent to South Korea for special training, that girl is just a trainee. How does she have the guts to provoke Kyoe Sora?" Shosuke was shocked. You smiled and nodded. Just relying on her to harm Kyo is indeed impossible, so behind Emi there must definitely be someone else. "You mean Emi is merely a chess piece?" Shosuke asked. "Right now, we first need to help Kyo clarify that the song plagiarism matter has nothing to do with her. This is also the purpose of my visit. We have to make Emi stand up and clarify this matter. Only if Emi intentionally wanted to harm Hina, she certainly won't step forward. And to be honest, from this girl Emi, I saw." Shosuke trailed off, hesitating. You helped him finish. "You saw the shadow of Hina from back then, right?" Since you brought it up yourself, Shosuke couldn't help but sigh. "Yeah, to be honest, after Hina became popular, she kicked you away with one foot, broke her contract with our Huangji, and signed with Meiyu. This whole series of operations was crossing the river and smashing the bridge. It not only stepped on you, but also stepped on me. Now thinking about it, I regret why I helped her back then. With her personality, signing with Meiyu was inevitable. After all, Meiyu now controls Meiyu TV and possesses massive traffic." You blinked and said, "Renji, to be honest, when Hina left Huangji, I wasn't particularly furious. After all, she paid the breach of contract penalty and earned a lot of money for our company in the previous few years. But she kicked you away. As an older brother, I really couldn't swallow that." You smiled indifferently. "Since I am Kyoe's fiancé, naturally I couldn't invest too much emotion in Hina. Back then I just saw that she came from the countryside and was a bit pitiful, so I wanted to help her out a little. I just didn't expect her ambition would be that big. Hina's ambition is truly too huge. To be frank, I suspect whether Kyoe Sora being repeatedly suppressed during this period could be related to Hina." As a veteran of the entertainment industry, Shosuke's intuition was still extremely sharp. "It's fine. Whether it's her or not, I won't let anyone harm Hina," you said indifferently. Shosuke's expression suddenly became somewhat troubled, and then he lowered his voice. "Renji, since you came today, as an older brother I need to remind you, this time Kyoe participating in Heaven's Thorn Good Voice is actually a trap by Meiyu Media to kick someone while they're down. As one of the judges, I accidentally heard that this time the production team won't give Kyoe too many camera angles, with the purpose of forming a sharp contrast with Hina." Outside the Tianyan Media recording studio, Yuka Yanagi was standing with her arms crossed beside the sound engineer. Her face carried a trace of a satisfied smile. As Kiyosora's sound engineer, the workload was truly very small, and the whole process only required tuning a few notes. Kiyosora's vocals were near perfect, especially since just a few days prior. Her condition when singing this new song had still been quite poor, yet unexpectedly, within just a few days, all those issues had been overcome. Could this be the power of love? Yuka Yanagi's mind couldn't help but pop out this phrase. Without further ado, let's all enjoy Kiyo's new song together. Want to hear the music you've listened to? Want to read the novels you've read? I want to capture every single moment. I want to see the world in your eyes. Thinking of the places you've been to and the time you've spent, not wanting to miss a single moment. How I hope I've always been by your side. No matter where the future goes, if you're happy, then it's fine with me. To you I am most familiar. You love freedom, but I love you even more. I can get used to long distances. Love is always beyond our control. I'd rather change the way. At least I can still love you from afar. Love can conquer long distances, no matter how far we must be together. You no longer exist in my world. Please don't leave my memories. Peace. Missing the tone when you said you love me. Missing your eyes looking at me. Missing your eyes looking at me. Not wanting to forget every moment. Using longing to keep us moving forward. Imagining your lost kiss. Imagining your canceled trip. Imagining the moment you left, if I had the courage to make you stay. Can get used to long distances. Love is always beyond our control. I'd rather change the way. At least I can still love you from afar. Love can conquer long distances. No matter how far we must be together, you no longer exist in your heart. Let me guard the memories alone. If the sunlight is always scorching, if the rainbow never loses its color, can you not leave, oh? I can get used to long distances. Love is always beyond our control. I'd rather change the way. At least I can still love you from afar. Love can conquer long distances. No matter how far we must be together. You no longer exist in my world. Please don't leave my memories. Too perfect. The recorded effect of this new song is exceptionally good. The moment Kiyoe came out of the recording studio, Yuka Yanagi couldn't help praising her. Facing Yuka Yanagi's recognition, Kiyoe inner feelings were also very satisfied. This is all thanks to Ken. Yeah, the power of love really is infinitely mighty, Yuka Yanagi muttered involuntarily. Kiyoe face blushed instantly. I mean, these pitch bend details were all modified by Ken for me. As soon as those words were said, Yuka Yanagi was once again stunned. You're saying these pitch bends were modified by Ken-san? Ken-san even understands music theory? He just listened to me sing a few times outside the practice room and modified these parts containing multiple chords. Aside from anything else, your music literacy. Kiyoe felt a heartfelt admiration. So amazing. Ken-san is truly unfathomable. Yuka Yanagi praised, while inwardly feeling somewhat empty. How was she supposed to deal with such a formidable master? Right, Kiyoe, there's a matter we need to discuss. I think for the first episode recording of Heaven's Thorn Good Voice, instead of singing old songs, you should directly sing a new song. This made Kiyoe somewhat surprised. Singing a new song right out of the gate. Wouldn't that be a bit unfavorable? In case the new song's response isn't as good as imagined, the subsequent competition will become very passive. Then what if it makes a stunning debut overnight? Today's audiences need freshness and a sense of stimulation. In Yuka's view, a stunning debut has a much better effect than a desperate counterattack. During the time that followed, Kiyoe practiced the new song a few more times. Until the evening hours, the assistant Tomoyo seized the opportunity to come before her. Kiyoe-san, it's getting late today. Let me send you back first. Ken will come pick me up, Kiyoe said subconsciously. But at the same time, inwardly she felt a bit angry. This guy sent away the assistant and manager, yet didn't come to pick her up on time. What's the meaning of this? Could it be that he expects this young lady to stand in the company and wait for him to arrive in front of all these people? Does this young lady have no pride? Countless inner monologues flashed through Kiyoe mind until, with a ding, Kiyoe phone received a notification. I've arrived downstairs, come down. Seeing the message you sent, Kiyoe beautiful eyes almost popped out. Making her go upstairs earlier was one thing, but now he was making her go down too? Kiyoe-san, why does your expression look a bit strange? Tomoyo couldn't help asking. Kiyoe only then snapped back to her senses, subsequently clutching her phone tightly. Ken has already come. I'll go down to the underground garage to wait for him. Ken-san isn't coming up? Tomoyo asked with confusion. Of all the pots to mention, she had to pick the cold one. Kyoe Sora took a fierce, deep breath. I'm going home. Why else would he come up? Such an unnecessary move. Having said that, she walked to the elevator lobby and pressed the elevator button. The elevator doors opened, but what caught her completely off guard was that standing inside the elevator was precisely the figure she least wanted to see right now. Are you heading back? I was just planning to invite you out for dinner. Kyoe Sora awkwardly looked at Renji, her mind rapidly calculating how to gracefully refuse. At this moment, another ding sounded. The opposite elevator had also arrived, and its doors slowly opened to reveal precisely you. Seeing Kyoe Sora standing by the elevator lobby with a rather awkward expression, you instantly understood what was going on. Hello, Renji. Facing the situation, Ken paused for a brief moment before stepping forward to smile and extend his hand toward Renji. Although this man before him was a potential enemy, when facing an enemy, basic composure still had to be maintained. Little did he know, Renji lacked that composure. Facing your extended hand in greeting, Renji unexpectedly refused to shake back, instead staring at you coldly. I don't care whether you are Kyoe's true fiancé or not, but Kyoe is my person. I absolutely will not. Unexpectedly, right off the bat, Renji directly declared war on you, causing Tomoyo and the others nearby to become excited. The war between men really is direct, declaring war right out of the gate. However, before Renji even finished speaking, you withdrew your right hand that had been extended to greet Renji, and then very naturally grabbed Kyoe Sora's hand in full view of everyone. Kyoe, we're going home. You looked at Kyoe Sora tenderly, completely ignoring the furiously glaring Renji beside you. The declaration of war phase hadn't even finished before it concluded, and judging from the situation, Renji had already lost. Paying zero attention to Renji, you pulled Kyoe Sora straight into the elevator. Meanwhile, Kyoe Sora, having her hand held by you in public, felt her heartbeat quickening in disarray. You held Kyoe Sora's hand right in front of Renji all the way to the underground garage, and then proactively opened the car door for Kyoe Sora. Seeing this action, Kyoe Sora couldn't help asking, didn't you just say that opening a car door for a girl is acting like a total lapdog? A total lapdog? You nodded non-committally. However, add one more action, and this behavior is definitely not lapdog-like. What action? Kyoe Sora was startled. Before Kyoe Sora could even react, you scooped her up into a bridal carry in one swift motion. Kyoe Sora's delicate body instantly lost balance, reflexively wrapping her arms around your neck. Simultaneously, with a ding, the elevator doors opened again. Renji, who had also arrived in the garage, was once again forcefully and heavily shoved a massive, super sweet mouthful of dog food straight down his throat, unable to spit it out even if he wanted to. Does adding one more action make it not look like a lapdog? After placing Kyoe Sora into the passenger seat, you asked with a smile. Kyoe Sora's cheeks remained flushed, her heartbeat chaotic and rhythmless. This isn't showing that you're not a lapdog, this is clearly acting like a hooligan. You holding my hand in front of everyone was one thing, but could you not touch other parts of my body? Settling into the car, Kyoe Sora bit her red lips and forced herself to say, you smiled faintly. We aren't that close. Kyoe Sora immediately grew alarmed. Don't bring up that night! Actually, I didn't want to either, but you called me a lapdog, so I couldn't just take it lying down, right? Wait, what do you mean by, actually you didn't want to either? Such a beauty placed right in front of you and you didn't want to touch her. Kyoe Sora abruptly discovered her inner feelings instantly turning incomparably complicated once again. Half an hour later, you and Kyoe Sora returned to that seaside villa. Yet the moment they stepped inside, the sweet and cute-looking Hina, holding 3 small red flowers she had folded herself, ran up to Kyoe Sora. Kyoe sis, this is for you. Hina flashed a sweet smile toward Kyoe Sora. Seeing Hina looking like this, Kyoe Sora's heart instantly melted. She couldn't help taking the small red flowers. Wow, so pretty! Did Hina fold these herself? Kyoe sis, you can use these 3 small red flowers to ask my daddy for 3 wishes. Daddy will definitely agree to all of them. It turned out that the moment you came out of Huangji, you had picked up Hina and deliberately taught her to do this, because you knew very well how hard it was for Kyoe Sora to accept suddenly having a child. Therefore, These 3 small flowers could also be considered 3 promises given to Kioi Sora, hoping she would make good use of them. Then my first wish is to have your daddy imitate how a pig squeals. Kioi Sora happily pulled out a small red flower and laughed with narrowed eyes. Looking at her radiant smile, you were left speechless for a moment. Are you sure you want to use the small red flower like this? Kioi Sora didn't hesitate. Otherwise? Don't you feel it's a bit of a waste? You retorted once again. What's wasteful about a small red flower? Kioi Sora said unconcernedly, immediately urging you. Hurry up, can't afford to lose. It's just imitating a pig squeal, right? It seemed the woman before you truly hadn't appreciated your painstaking efforts at all. You're not allowed to back out, okay? Hina chimed in to stir up trouble. You were utterly helpless. Fine, imitating a pig squeal it is. Listen up. Oink oink. You pinched your nose and produced an oink oink sound through your nasal passages. Seeing you look like this, Kioi Sora couldn't hold back even more than Hina, letting out a burst of laughter and shaking with mirth in an instant. Daddy is so silly. Hina clapped her hands in excitement, reaching out to press against the tip of your nose. Kyo sees. Doesn't Daddy look even more like a pig now? Ha ha ha, your daddy really is a pighead. I also think Daddy is a pighead. If I'm a pig, then you're a little piglet. Seeing how happy Hina was, you pulled her into a hug and pinched the tip of her nose as well. Kiyoshi, save me! Hina struggled vigorously to break free from your hands, quickly dashing over to Kioi Sora's side. But who would have thought that the moment Kioi Sora pulled her into her embrace, Hina with lightning speed used her finger to jab against Kioi Sora's nose. Ha, Hina, you're so bad. Kiosis, don't run! Don't you come over? I refuse to become a pighead. Soon, Hina and Kioi Sora began chasing and playing around in the room. Looking at the two of them laughing and chatting happily, at least their first meeting was not as bad as you had imagined. In the evening, you took out ingredients from the refrigerator and prepared to make a sumptuous dinner. Seeing you selecting vegetables, Hina quickly ran over, pulled a small chair, and sat beside you. Daddy, you have always been pleased with this. Since she was a little over 3 years old, Hina would help you with some simple chores. Although she was often clumsy, by now Hina had truly become a little expert at picking vegetables. Holding a cup of coffee, Kioi Sora came down from upstairs. Seeing Hina helping you peel edamame, she could not help being slightly stunned, and then a wave of complex emotions surged in her heart. Remembering what you had said earlier that Hina's mother had passed away, had the two of them been living like this all along? Putting down her cup, Kioi Sora asked, feeling a bit heartbroken as she watched Hina doing chores at such a young age. You go wait in the living room and eat later. Hina has been able to do these things for a long time. You raised your eyes to look at Kioi Sora and smiled. Kioi Sora immediately glared at you. Don't make me look like I am some kind of good-for-nothing. Having said that, she pulled over a small chair, sat down beside Hina, and praised. I didn't expect Hina to be so capable. Hina giggled. This is very simple. With that, her two little hands skillfully shelled the edamame again, putting the green beans into a bowl beside her. Kioi Sora picked up a vine and pulled hard to detach the edamame from it. However, when she got ready to shell the beans, she suddenly felt a bit clumsy because her nails were meticulously manicured. While pretty and exquisite, they were entirely useless, and shelling edamame instead became a burden. Seeing Kioi Sora holding an edamame pod and hesitating for a long time without starting, Hina subconsciously thought she did not know how. Kiosis, pinch this end, gently squeeze and tear it along the grain. Kioi Sora felt somewhat embarrassed. Sis, is this a matter of whether I know how or not? Fortunately, you realize this. Why don't you go sit in the living room and avoid ruining your carefully done nails? Kioi Sora looked at you unconvinced, giving off the posture of, don't treat this young lady like a good-for-nothing. Afterward, she stood up and came to your side. Are there any vegetables that need cutting? I can do it. Then cut some onion slices. You handed her an onion. Kioi Sora blankly took the onion, her brain suddenly lagging. How do you cut onion slices again? But to prove she was not useless, she still bit the bullet and picked up the kitchen knife, thinking, I'll just cut it first and figure it out. However, after 2 cuts, her movements came to an abrupt halt. Why is this young lady being made to cut onions? On purpose, right? Kioi Sora only felt a stinging, burning sensation in her eyes, followed by tears uncontrollably welling up in her eye sockets. Turns out the thing about cutting onions making you cry is actually real. What's wrong? Seeing Kyo-Sora's movements come to an abrupt halt, you subconsciously looked at her. Kyo-Sora wore a tearful expression. Right then, she didn't even want to look up, only wanting to roar at you. I didn't actually want to cry. Kyo-sis, why are you crying? Hina stared at Kyo-Sora in astonishment. Onions, burning my eyes. Kyo-Sora emphasized, subconsciously wanting to use her hand to wipe the tears at the corners of her eyes. Fortunately, you grabbed her hand just in time so she wouldn't use her hands. After Kyo-Sora washed her hands, you pulled out 2 tissues and handed them to her. Onions shouldn't be cut like that. I think you did it on purpose. Then how should onions be cut? Kyo-Sora took the tissues and glared at you. Soak them in water first. You picked up an onion and soaked it in water for a while so that a moisture film adhered to the surface, cutting it like that. Unexpectedly, before you even finished speaking, you also felt a stinging, burning sensation in your eyes. This onion. Ha ha ha! I thought you were so amazing. Seeing tears swirling in your eye sockets as well, Kyo-Sora could not help mocking you. Hina also chimed in with giggles. Daddy is so silly. At this moment, the doorbell rang. Hina ran toward the video intercom in the living room and shouted, An uncle is here outside. Kyo-Sora's brows immediately furrowed. Looking closely, she discovered that the person standing outside was precisely Renji. Why is he here? Seeing that the visitor was Renji, Kyo-Sora felt a bit nervous inside, momentarily not knowing how to face him. Kyo-Sora looked at you with a somewhat pale complexion. Although you knew some things were bound to be impossible to hide, you had to make corresponding preparations before the exposure. It's not the time yet. Why don't you two go upstairs first? Kyo-Sora pondered for a moment before speaking, though she clearly looked flustered. Hiding a beauty in a golden house, and now hiding a big one, and a small one too? I'll go. You blocked her. You take Hina upstairs. Kyo-Sora hurriedly pulled Hina's hand, though she felt somewhat strange inside. Clearly I am the mistress of this house, so why does it feel like I'm doing something shady, having to hide away myself? Once Kyo-Sora and Hina went upstairs, you came to the courtyard and opened the courtyard gate. Renji's expression instantly turned somewhat ugly, nervously staring at the kitchen knife in your hand. What do you mean by this? You are actually holding the kitchen knife on purpose. Do you have business with Kyo-e? Can you put down the kitchen knife and talk? Renji said with a speechless expression, especially facing that kitchen knife. He did not dare to barge right in. You glanced at the kitchen knife in your hand. If you have business, state it directly. If not, I'm going back inside. I am Kyo-e's boss after all. Is this kind of attitude appropriate? Renji wore an angry expression. You remained calm. I'm cutting vegetables. Is there a problem? At least let me go inside. Why should I let you go in? Renji gritted his teeth and said, As her boss, can't I come to Kyo's home for a visit? Renji was completely messed up. I'm here to talk with Kyo-e about work matters. Can't you talk about it over the phone? I don't care what relationship you have with Kyo-e. Doing this does not benefit Kyo-e at all. Do you know what consequences you'll face by offending me? Renji finally resorted to harsh threats. Facing Renji's harsh words, your expression also grew slightly colder. If I didn't do this, wouldn't I be offending you anyway? Do you think I still need to please you? I will never let you snatch Kyo-e away. Renji glared at you through gritted teeth, issuing a declaration of war once again. Snatch? Do you think that word is appropriate? Kyo-e is my fiancé to begin with. I really don't understand what you're muttering about. Or should I give you a word as well? Renji subconsciously asked. What word? Scram. Having said that, you directly closed the door and turned back into the house. Renji stood at the doorway, so furious that the veins on his forehead were about to burst. Returning inside, Kyo-Sora pulled Hina and cautiously came down from upstairs. Did Renji leave? You continued cutting vegetables, although you didn't want to gain an enemy so quickly. Since Renji had impatiently declared war back at the company, this trouble had to be faced sooner or later. Being Kyo-Sora's fiancé is truly difficult to pull off. He left just like that? I didn't let him stay. Then why did he leave? Because I told him to scram. The corners of Kyo-Sora's mouth twitched fiercely. He's the president of Tianyan after all. If you treat him like this, he won't let you off. If I didn't act like this, would he let me off? On the contrary, acting more assertive might make him hesitate more, you said while cutting vegetables. Kyo-Sora nodded approvingly. Actually, I know he has always liked me, but his private life is a mess. I could never like that kind of man. You're worried he'll target you at work going forward? Yu voiced out her worries for her. Kiyoisora sighed. Things are already bad enough. I'm not afraid of them getting worse. Can you really let go of it? What if I can't? The entertainment industry is truly too chaotic. Kiyoisora wore a desolate expression. Actually, it's really exhausting in the entertainment industry. As long as the songs I sing can be heard by my fans, even if I go to a bar to be a resident singer, I can accept it. Compared to Hina's ambition, Kiyoisora truly possessed a Buddhist, go-with-the-flow attitude. If that's how you think about it, the problem becomes much simpler. Why don't I just go open a bar? You need to open one? Can't I open one myself? Kiyoisora immediately rolled her eyes. Is dinner ready yet? In the center of Haishi, inside a high-rise apartment overlooking the entire night view of Haishi, Yuka Yanagi was closing her eyes and listening quietly to music. The song Meeting that she accidentally heard on the S station surprised her greatly. It had been a long time since she last heard such a comfortable song. Seemingly plain vocals, yet possessing an indescribable magnetic charm. After listening to it continuously for over a dozen times, Yuka Yanagi reluctantly took out her earphones, staring somewhat blankly at the man with the panda avatar in the video. This man must be someone with a story, Yuka Yanagi muttered to herself. Afterward, she clicked on the gift option of the video and impulsively tipped 100,000, then clicked on share to share this song on her Weibo. Having done all this, she still stared at the video in a daze, seemingly deep in thought. Long after, she clicked on the private message page and sent a direct message. I am Yuka Yanagi. I really like this song Meeting of yours. I want to meet you to discuss a collaboration. From her perspective, for a top-tier female singer like herself to leave a message for a small internet celebrity, upon seeing it, the other party would probably be so excited they wouldn't be able to sleep. After finishing dinner, Kiyoisora sat contentedly on the balcony, gazing at the flame-like sunset in the distance. The reason she bought this house in the first place was because she loved facing the ocean, listening to the rise and fall of the tides, and watching the sunrise and sunset, which could wash away all her daily troubles and exhaustion. Wow, this sunset is so pretty! At this moment, Hina's exclamation sounded from behind her. Kiyoisora smiled and turned her head, pulling Hina into her embrace. Even though this little girl had only recently entered her life, she felt exceptionally adapted to it, as if she truly had a child of her own. You can watch it every day from now on. Kiyoisora looked gently at Hina, thinking how Hina had been without a mother since she was little, and a trace of doting involuntarily filled her eyes. Hina leaned against Kiyoisora's embrace. Kiyoi sis, I feel like I'm dreaming. Realizing something, Kiyoisora looked curiously at Hina. When you moved here, what did your daddy tell you? Daddy said you are going to marry him soon. Kiyoisora was speechless for a moment, but thinking about it again, she felt relieved. After all, Hina was just a child. If you told her the truth, not only would it be hard for her to understand, but it would also be easier for things to be exposed. It was just a question of whether she could accept it after this incident passed. Hina, go watch TV in the living room for a bit. I have something to tell Kiyosis. Coming out to the balcony, you happened to hear Hina's words. Okay, Daddy. Although she was a bit reluctant to leave the distant sunset glow, Hina still obediently nodded and ran into the house. You looked apologetically at Kiyoisora. I was worried the child's innocent words might blurt things out, so I didn't tell her the truth. I understand. I just wonder if Hina will be unable to accept it when she finds out the truth later, Kiyoisora worriedly said. You sighed. That's why I want to ask you a favor. Whenever you said those words, Kiyoisora's heart would reflexively tighten. Go ahead, Kiyoisora pursed her lips. If the time comes and Hina and I leave this place, will you still be able to visit her occasionally? I feel like Hina really likes you, and I don't want to tell her the truth yet. A hint of pleading lingered in your tone. Seeing it was just this request, Kiyoisora breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Even if you leave, Hina can stay here. You gave an awkward smile. For Heaven's Thorn Good Voice, what song do you plan to sing for your first track? Remembering your daytime chat with Shosuke, you asked. After all, if Shosuke's words were true, and the production team intended to target Kiyoisora, then the first song she sang on the show would be exceptionally crucial. It had to be a song that could directly captivate fans and make the judges shut their mouths. Kyoe Sora's face gained a trace of desolation. The company wants me to sing a new song, but fans have no emotional foundation with new songs, and I don't know how they will react to hearing it, so I'm a bit worried. Besides, new songs are very easily picked apart by judges. Kyoe Sora nodded. Plus, with me being deeply embroiled in the plagiarism controversy recently, I'm afraid fans won't accept it. The plagiarism controversy had indeed heavily dealt a blow to her confidence. You didn't rush to express your own view, instead asking, then what are your own thoughts? I don't want to sing my own songs. I want to cover some difficult songs that are widely praised by fans, letting them see a different side of me. Every singer has their own vocal range, and singing your own songs well isn't hard. But singing other people's songs well truly showcases one's foundation, Kyoe Sora said somewhat excitedly. But doing so also comes with huge risks. After all, original singers leave deep-seated musical memories in fans' hearts, and surpassing the original singer while dealing with fans' accumulated emotional attachment over time is extremely difficult. I understand, but precisely because of that, I also want to break through myself. Previously, many fans said I can only sing upbeat songs and can't sing tear-jerking love songs. I don't want to stay like this forever. I like singing love songs, and I want to sing love songs. Then which song do you want to cover? In your view, good music in this parallel universe was scarce, and tear-jerking love songs capable of evoking strong emotional resonance among fans were even rarer. Unexpectedly, Kyoe Sora gave you an unexpected answer. You saw Hina looking somewhat excitedly at her phone, opening S Station, and then playing that song Meeting. This is a song I heard on S Station these past 2 days. Every single lyric strikes deep into the heart, and this creator's voice has a strong magnetic charm. In just 2 days, the popularity of this song has almost broken 3 million. After uploading the song, you hadn't paid attention to the back end. You never expected the popularity of Meeting to be so high in such a short time, and fans in the comment section had completely fallen for it, with countless numbers of them being reduced to tears. You want to sing this song, you asked? Kyoe Sora nodded firmly, but a look of disappointment quickly surfaced. Yes, I really want to sing this song, but unfortunately, I sent a private message to this creator yesterday and they still haven't replied. I don't know if they will agree to authorize the copyright to me. Originally, you actually didn't agree with Kyoe Sora singing this song. On the surface, the song didn't have high difficulty high notes, and the melody was relatively gentle, but in reality, it demanded extremely high control over pitch and breath. Songs delivered in a plain, narrative style were often the hardest to sing well. But Kyoe Sora's words moved you. As a singer, daring to change, challenge, and break through oneself was something so many singers nowadays fail to achieve. This song's popularity skyrocketed so fast that the creator's back-end messages probably exploded. Not seeing your message right away is normal. However, Kyoe Sora's next move caught you completely off guard. You saw her excitedly patting her thighs. This reminds me, this song blew up in just 2 days, so this creator's back-end messages must be flooded. I have to make my message stand out so they notice it at a glance. So what do you plan to do? You looked at her curiously. You saw Kyoe Sora's fingers quickly swiping across the screen, opening the tipping interface of the song. If I smash my way to become the #1 top donor, they'll definitely notice me, right? You were left speechless for a moment. Are all little sugar mommies this willful? But soon, Kyoe Sora's willow-like brows furrowed as she stared at the screen and muttered to herself. Yuka Yanagi actually tipped as well, becoming #1 on the leaderboard? She likes this song too? She couldn't help looking at the screen, discovering that Yuka Yanagi's name was prominently displayed at the top of the tipping list. No way! How could she snatch it from me? The top spot is mine! Immediately afterward, countless gift special effects floated across the screen, and her fingers tapped rapidly on the display, giving off the posture of someone about to smash the screen. Is it really necessary to go this far? You watched from the side, left speechless. Oops! Accidentally hit almost 1 million. Now I should have a commanding lead, right? After a full 10 minutes, Kyoe Sora finally stopped, panting slightly. Returning to your room, after Hina fell asleep, you gently held her and opened the S Station backend. Meeting had been uploaded for exactly 48 hours. Popularity at 4.23 million. Likes at 1.5 million. Comments at 180,000. And cumulative tips totaling 1.2 million, among which Kyoe Sora had contributed 1 million. And with her perfectionist streak, she probably went back and secretly tipped another batch to round the amount off to an integer. Based on the tipping amounts, the tippers, direct messages were pinned and sorted at the top, and prominently in first place was Kyoe Sora's. Right below hers was Yuka Yanagi's message. Saizen-sensei, I am Kyoe Sora. I really love your song and would love to cover it on the show. Could you meet with me and grant me the authorization for this song? I'm eagerly looking forward to it and deeply grateful, awaiting your reply. Kyoe Sora's message was extremely sincere. Under the dim light, you looked at her message, pondered for a moment, and replied, "Thank you for your recognition. Just send me an authorization agreement online." Closing Kyoe Sora's message, you opened Yuka Yanagi's message. I am Yuka Yanagi. I really like your song Meeting. I want to meet you to discuss a collaboration. I have no intention of collaborating. Without overthinking it, you quickly typed this line of text on the screen. The next morning, Kyoe Sora rubbed her sleepy eyes as she came downstairs and found that Hina already had her school bag on, ready to go to school. Is Hina going to school this early? Kyoe Sora looked in surprise at the quartz clock on the wall, but soon her smile turned somewhat awkward. Oh, so it's already 8:30. I cooked some porridge for breakfast, dish some out yourself, you said as you finished tying Hina's shoelaces and stood up. Kyoe Sora abruptly reached out. I'll go with you guys. You're coming along? You looked somewhat surprised. Kyoe Sora smiled and nodded. I want to see where Hina goes to school. In case you're busy one day, I can help pick her up. As if I'd be busier than you chuckled. Kyoe Sora puffed out her cheeks again. What if? Anyway, wait for me. I'll be right down. Having said that, wearing her slippers, she pattered quickly upstairs and soon changed her clothes. Not putting on makeup? Seeing her come down barefaced, you subconsciously asked. Kyoe Sora immediately rolled her eyes. Am I that ugly without makeup? You're pretty. Kyoasis is the prettiest. Hina's mouth is so sweet. She definitely inherited it from her mom. Unlike your mouth, which can make people mad enough to die, Kyoe Sora happily pinched Hina's little cheek, then took her hand and walked briskly toward the garage. Arriving at the school, just as you were about to get out of the car, Kyoe Sora had already put on a pair of oversized sunglasses. Wait in the car. I'll take Hina in. Aren't you afraid of paparazzi? You looked at the somewhat unusual Kyoe Sora. Kyoe Sora raised the corner of her brow. What is there to fear? Whatever you fear comes. If you aren't afraid, it won't happen. Invincible logic. You couldn't help giving a thumbs up. But thinking about it, keeping certain things hidden made you look sneaky. Hina's existence would inevitably be exposed eventually, so letting a few clues slip beforehand would actually make you seem more justified later. Let's go! Kyoe Sora opened the car door and led Hina toward the school gate. Sure enough, as soon as she planted herself at the school gate, quite a few of the students' fathers cast their glances over, though they probably wouldn't even dream in their wildest dreams that this top-figured mother wearing sunglasses was the megastar Kyoe Sora. Watching Hina's back disappear around the hallway corner, Kyoe Sora reluctantly returned to the car. How does it feel to be a mother? Kyoe Sora answered subconsciously but quickly glared at you. Don't take advantage of me. I can be Hina's mother, but that has nothing to do with you. I seem to remember it does have something to do with me. Kyoe Sora instantly realized the hidden meaning behind your words, and her little face flushed bright red. You are not allowed to bring up that day. Just pretend it never happened. Fine, you're the boss. Where to next? You shrugged. I'm hungry. Kyoe Sora smacked her lips. Want to try something different? Seeing Kyoe Sora rub her flat stomach, you asked with a slight smile. Kyoe Sora immediately put on an expectant expression. Is it delicious? How is it different? You'll see when we get there, heh? I hate people who keep secrets the most. Then are we going or not? Soon, you drove to the downstairs of the residential complex where you used to live. Where is this? Kyoe Sora asked, looking at the ordinary neighborhood-style buildings outside the window. You answered truthfully, this is where I used to live. An old residential area. Do you think it looks very run down? Not at all, it's full of life. Seeing Kyoe Sora answer without hesitation and not seeming like she was putting on an act. It reminded you of Yuka Yanagi, who wouldn't even step a single foot into this neighborhood after she became famous. I'm taking you to eat the famous Chaowu handmade noodles from my hometown. This is the only shop in the whole city, and I think it's the most authentic. Soon, you brought Kiyoi Sora into a long-established noodle shop. Inside, it was bustling and almost completely packed. So many people. Kiyoi Sora instinctively adjusted her sunglasses. You ordered a signature 3-delicacy noodles for her and seated her in a corner table. Will you feel uncomfortable eating here? Kiyoi Sora shook her head. There are just a lot of people. Nothing uncomfortable about it. Actually, I really like this kind of place full of everyday life. This is what living is really about. It's just that usually my company restricts me too much and won't let me come to places like this. Celebrities often lacked freedom. Because she was wearing oversized sunglasses, it made it very awkward for Kiyoi Sora to eat her noodles, and a thin layer of white mist quickly formed on the black lenses. At this moment, you reached out and took off her sunglasses. If I get recognized, how am I supposed to eat my noodles? Kiyoi Sora instantly grew nervous. While she wasn't afraid of paparazzi photos, she was afraid of being mobbed by fans. You remained completely relaxed. Don't worry, look around you. Everyone eating here is just ordinary older folks. Nobody cares who you are. Kiyoi Sora suddenly realized that, indeed, not a single person was paying attention to her. Once she took off her sunglasses, eating her noodles became smooth sailing, slurping away quite happily. After finishing, Kiyoi Sora suddenly said, "Renji, I want to go see the place where you and Hina used to live." "What's gotten into you?" "Let's go then. It's just a short walk." Kiyoi Sora wiped the corner of her mouth with a tissue and stood up first. The residential complex where you lived, although old, had very well-maintained greenery, and the trees along the roadside were lush and leafy, giving Kiyoi Sora a fleeting illusion as if she had returned to her campus days. Back then, even though she was the campus belle and always followed by a group of suitors, she still had much more freedom compared to now. "I feel like this neighborhood of yours is quite nice." Kiyoi Sora closed her eyes and breathed in the scent of grass and trees lingering in the air. Seeing her like this, you once again thought of Yuka Yanagi, who had also spoken those exact words in the past. "What are you daydreaming about? There's no path ahead. Which way should we go?" Kiyoi Sora waved her hand in front of your eyes. Coming back to your senses, you made a right turn and led her into an apartment building. "Are you thinking about Hina's mother?" A woman's intuition was terrifyingly strong. "No, you lied. Because you didn't want to bring up Yuka Yanagi in front of Kiyoi Sora, and even less did you want her to know your relationship with Yuka Yanagi." Soon you arrived at the 3rd floor. You took out your keys and opened the front door. The apartment wasn't large, totaling about 90 square meters, not even close to a single bedroom in Kiyoi Sora's seaside villa. However, it was neat and tidy, not looking at all like the home of a man raising a child alone. "Pretty tidy. I thought it would be a complete mess," Kiyoi Sora said with pleasant surprise, unable to hide her praise. "Don't you plan to let me in?" Kiyoi Sora put on a playfully angry expression. "I thought just taking a look would satisfy your curiosity." Kiyoi Sora blinked. "My curiosity isn't that easily satisfied." With that, she kicked off her shoes and walked inside, but after glancing around, she raised her head. "How come there isn't even a single pair of women's slippers? How have you been living these past 5 years? Without women, I couldn't survive." "Then how do you take care of it yourself?" Kiyoi Sora blurted out, only realizing what a wild thing she had said right after the words left her mouth. "Take care of what?" you asked with feigned innocence. Kiyoi Sora's face turned completely red. She averted her gaze and muttered, "Nothing." "Then how do you take care of it yourself?" Unexpectedly, you dared to turn the question back on her. This time, Kiyoi Sora's face grew even redder. "Take care of what?" "I don't understand what you're saying." Remembering that trace of scarlet on the bed from the other night, you shrugged. "It's good if you don't understand." "What's so good about it?" Kiyoi Sora felt her face burning hot. Her mind inevitably recalled the dreamlike, half-asleep, heart-pounding scenes of that night. Although the memory wasn't entirely clear, it left a lingering sweetness. "Just come on in." You walked indoors wearing your shoes. Although this apartment had originally been rented, not long after Yuka Yanagi left, you bought it outright. At the time, your heart still held a shred of attachment, but looking back now, it was a complete joke. Some people only drift further and further away. Once inside, you added some water to the pitcher. Kyoe Sora grabbed a spray bottle and helped you water all the large and small green plants around the house. Do you want to move these plants to my place? They belong here. I'll come back to water them from time to time. You smiled slightly. At that moment, Kyoe Sora spotted a guitar resting on the sofa, picked it up, and asked, "Were you a music major when you were in school?" "No, I studied economics." "Then why is your understanding of music theory so professional?" Remembering the musical score you left behind that night, Kyoe Sora grew curious again. "Because I like it, I taught myself a lot." You answered truthfully, while your powerful musical ear was simply an innate talent. Kyoe Sora nodded and gently plucked the strings, though she quickly noticed 2 letters at the bottom of the guitar body that had been specially treated, looking like 2 newly sprouted saplings. Therefore, Kyoe Sora didn't realize they were letters and thought they were just saplings. Why are there 2 little saplings carved on the guitar body? What do they mean? You were silent for a moment before answering. Just carved them on a whim. Really? No special meaning? A hint of skepticism flickered in Kyoe Sora's eyes. You took the guitar back from her hands. None. Why are you getting mad? If there isn't, there isn't. Kyoe Sora pouted, planning to ignore you. Realizing your tone might have been a bit heavy, you quickly tried to coax her. Hey, it really is nothing. Seeing this, Kyoe Sora immediately pushed her luck. If you want me to forgive you, you have to sing a song for me since you have the guitar right here. Hearing this, you were left speechless, so she was setting a trap for you right there. But you agreed anyway. After all, you had already demonstrated your musical theory and voice, so there was nothing left to hide. However, you slightly altered your vocal tone to prevent her from recognizing that you were the creator of Meeting. Without further ado, let's all enjoy Renji's impromptu performance. On that 19-year-old day, I came before Huang Wai. To be able to meet you here, I paid with my 4 years. On that 20-year-old day, the guitar was by my side. I opened my clumsy hands, and my love for you surged into my heart. You are my dream of anxious gain and loss. You are my dispensable person. After all, the arrow piercing through rivers and mountains pierces those who are lovesick to the bone. You are my tossing and turning dream. I am your dreamlike old friend from the mountains and rivers. Let this heart-wrenching wine stimulate the hearts of you and me like sulfuric acid. The first time I saw you, the Minnan girl was always so gentle. When I shyly held your hand, I thought you would accompany me to the very end. And after you left me, I began to drift through the mortal world. Choosing dreams both big and small, thank you for stopping my wandering. I am your deep as the sea dependency. You are my long outdated old love. Anyway, at this awkward age, nobody falls for just anyone. You are my regret accepted with peace of mind. I fill it up with that unregretful time. Let these uncomplaining and regretful hands pack up the future I want. A song written late at night to Huang Wai. You are my unspeakable love. When I wandered helplessly in place, you told me ideals must be passionately loved. You wanted me to persist in my persistence. You made me understand what to live for. Eternity is not just that single moment. Thank you for letting me see my future. Kyoe Sora pulled out her phone and subconsciously opened the S station. When she saw the little red notification dot for direct messages, she instantly got excited and let out a shriek. What is it? Saizen-sensei replied to me. She said, authorization is granted. This is amazing. Quick, take me to the company. I want to discuss this matter with them. Kyoe Sora sprang up, full of excitement. On the other side, Yuka Yanagi had just woken up from her sleep and sat up in bed. But a moment later, she seemed to snap instantly awake, eagerly grabbing the phone from beside her pillow. Opening the S station, when she saw there was a direct message notification, the corners of her mouth bloomed into a smile. However, when she saw the content of the message, her beautiful eyes suddenly widened in sheer disbelief, utterly speechless. Yuka Yanagi grabbed her own silky hair, her eyes fixed tightly on the screen. Rejected me? Could I have not expressed myself clearly enough? Does he not know who Yuka Yanagi is? For a moment, her competitive spirit was abruptly ignited, and her breathing became disordered. I am the singer Yuka Yanagi. You definitely won't lose out. After finishing her message, she quickly clicked send. Her wonderful morning mood had been completely ruined by this message. Soon, she dialed another number. Xiaosu, help me find that Saizen from S station. Saizen? What Saizen? Assistant Xiaoqin's tone was full of surprise. The creator of that song Meeting. Search high and low and find him for me immediately. With that, Yuka Yanagi hung up the phone angrily. Arriving at the living room, she remembered that the auntie's son was getting married and had asked for 3 days off. Feeling a slight pain coming from her stomach, Yuka Yanagi gritted her teeth, found 7 slices of toast from the cabinet, and stuffed them into her mouth. However, she quickly spat them out. Her palate had become so refined nowadays that ordinary things could no longer enter her mouth. Thus, she called her assistant again and asked her to deliver breakfast immediately. Arriving at the company, Kiyoe Sora couldn't wait to go into Yuka Yanagi's office. "Yuka, I've decided. For my first song on The Voice of Heaven's Thorn, I'm not going to sing a new song." "Not singing a new song? Then what are you singing?" Yuka Yanagi, who was drinking coffee, was taken aback, the cup in her hand suspended mid-air. That song that surged to the top of the new song charts on S Station these past 2 days. Yuka Yanagi had naturally heard Meeting, but regarding Kiyoe Sora's decision, she still found it unimaginable. "This is too risky. That's just a song written by some minor internet celebrity. Although the quality is alright, for someone of your status to sing this song, good music works don't have issues of whether they're devaluing or not. Anyway, I want to sing it. It's too risky. This program period is already disadvantageous for you to begin with. Then, I'll go find President Renji." Seeing that Yuka Yanagi wouldn't agree, Kiyoe Sora turned and stormed out of her office with an angry look on her face. She was determined to have this song. Renji was leisurely playing simulated golf in his office. A hole-in-one. Before he even had time to celebrate, Kiyoe Sora aggressively stormed in. Looking at Kiyoe Sora's angry expression, Renji immediately put down his club and a trace of doting appeared on his face. "What's wrong? Who bullied you? That fiancé of yours?" "I'll help you teach him a lesson." Kiyoe Sora was speechless. For the initial stage of The Voice of Heaven's Thorn, I don't want to sing a new song. I want to cover Meeting. Yuka wouldn't agree, so I had no choice but to find you. Renji narrowed his eyes. Never heard of this song? Who sings it? Kiyoe Sora felt like she was playing the lute to a cow. When it came to music, Renji actually knew nothing at all. He only knew how to manipulate capital. That's why all these years Kiyoe Sora had regretted it. If she had signed with Kaguya instead, at least Shosuke was a genuine musician. Instead, she had signed with Tianyan. Although Tianyan gave her almost half of their resources, she wasn't happy here at all. Moreover, over the past few years, she had long since made a fortune for Tianyan, yet her contract still had 2 years left. Anyway, this is my decision, and I hope you'll agree. Kiyoe Sora didn't want to explain what kind of song Meeting was. Playing the lute to a cow until death wouldn't make it clear anyway. Tang Yun is the professional here. Just listen to her. No! Kiyoe Sora wore a wronged expression. Every time you just listen to the company's arrangements. Have you ever respected my feelings? Who understands my musical route better than I do? And if it weren't for the company's arrangements every time, would those plagiarism incidents have happened? If I controlled it myself, would I make those low-level mistakes? Kiyoe Sora already harbored a belly full of resentment toward the company. If only they had let her reconfirm the records before release, it wouldn't have turned into such a blunder. Sora, your actions dictate the company's stock price. Can you throw a tantrum like this? Renji said seriously. Don't talk to me about stock prices. The company's stock issuance price was 27, and now it's 81. Haven't my contributions been enough? Renji looked calmly at Kiyoe Sora, having never seen her this firm before. This made him worry. Just how much confidence had the appearance of this fiancé given her to make her so disobedient? His people couldn't dig out her true background either. He had checked all overseas capital he could, but none of it carried your name. Yet precisely those things that couldn't be checked were the most terrifying existence. Renji didn't dare to gamble. If he offended an international crocodile, his tiny Tianyan entertainment wouldn't even be enough to look at. Renji gently rubbed his nose and turned around twice in place, ultimately not wanting to fall out over this minor matter. Listen to you. I'll talk to Tang Yun about this. Kiyoe Sora hadn't expected Renji to agree so suddenly, so she muttered a thank you and was just about to leave. Renji called her back. Sora, I want to have a meal with your fiancé. Since he couldn't dig up your information, Renji thought of probing your stance through a meal and conversation. You could tell whether someone belonged to upper society from their words and actions. I can't make the decision on this. I need his consent. Fortunately, Kyoe Sora didn't blurt out that this fully reflected your status. Then go back and discuss it with him. Calling! My side of things is sordid. Unable to suppress her inner excitement, the moment she walked out of Renji's office, Kyoe Sora sent you a message. I have some things to do. Kyoe Sora was dumbfounded. She had expected you to wait for her downstairs, but she never imagined this guy would just leave by himself and tell her to go back on her own. Kyoe Sora stared at the screen with her mouth slightly open. You expect me to go back how? By taking a taxi? That's not out of the question. Not out of the question? I'm a major celebrity. You expect me to take a taxi back? What if the driver kidnaps me? Seeing you keep replying to messages, Shosuke's mouth couldn't help but curve into a smile. Sora looking for you? I really never noticed. This girl is usually so cold, yet she's so clingy when it comes to you. Recently I sent her manager and assistant away, so she's a bit helpless with daily life. Ha 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 ha. Then you go find her first. I'm very interested in the project you mentioned. As long as you take a stake, I have confidence. Back then I made quite a bit of money relying on you. Your talent is what I admire the most. Shosuke laughed heartily, especially keen on what you plan to do next. Alright, this capital pool isn't small. Brother Shosuke, if you can't handle it alone, you can find a few more investors. Just someone you trust. 200 million? I can handle it. Such a great venture. I'm not handing it over to others. Shosuke stood up and personally saw you out of the company. During the time she waited for you, Kyoe Sora practiced the song Meeting a few times in the company's recording room. Just as you had said, although the melody of the song was smooth and gentle, it had extremely high demands on breath control. Fortunately, with her deep foundation, after a few rounds she basically mastered the enunciation and breathing points of the song. However, she still felt it sounded a bit different from how Saizen sang it, though what exactly was different, Kyoe Sora couldn't put her finger on. At that moment, the phone lying to the side rang. It was the message from you telling her to come downstairs. Grabbing her handbag, Kyoe Sora trotted downstairs like a little rabbit. Once she sat in the car, she realized whether she was acting a bit too excited. You look like you're in a good mood, you said with a smile, looking at Kyoe Sora, whose mouth corners were curling upward. Kyoe Sora put away her smile and glared at you. Not at all good. You're a terrible driver, totally irresponsible. I'm not your driver. Then what are you? Fiancé. Shameless. However, a moment later she couldn't suppress the joy in her heart. The company agreed that I can sing Meeting for my initial stage. Just for this? That's enough to make you this happy? What do you mean, just for this? This is the first time I've ever disobeyed the company's arrangement. Then you were way too obedient before. Don't you understand a simple truth? The crying baby gets the milk. Your words sounded like a joke, but they were actually the truth. If a person always just obeys and doesn't know how to resist, they will definitely be thoroughly manipulated by the other party. The past Kyoe Sora was just like that. I think what you're saying makes sense. Kyoe Sora looked at you and nodded in agreement. In the past, I was just too obedient to the company's arrangements and let them call the shots on everything, which is why I fell into that plagiarism scandal. If I had just kept my guard up a little, it wouldn't have come to this. You must remember, as an artist, especially the face of the company, the relationship between you and the company is always a mutual tug of war. You have to be strong. After all, if you threaten to quit and walk away, the company's losses are greater than yours. In the future, I definitely won't let the company manipulate me. At worst, I'll just say I'm quitting, Kyoe Sora giggled, suddenly turning into a rebellious child. You actually quite liked her looking like this. This woman could finally start living for herself from now on. Just now, Renji said he wanted to have a meal with you and chat. Recalling Renji's words, Kyoe Sora couldn't help casting her gaze toward you, thinking you would refuse because such dining invitations were always traps. Little did you know, you just smiled indifferently. Sure, but don't rush to say yes. After the initial stage of The Voice of Heaven's Thorn concludes, I'll set a time. You're really planning to go? He's obviously investigating your background. Kyoe Sora stared at you in shock. Once he finds out you're just an ordinary person, he'll definitely make a move against you, especially since the Renji family behind him holds massive power in the city. Kyoe Sora suddenly felt a bit worried for you. Through spending this time together, she was already deeply convinced that you had indeed been framed in that setup the other night. You had used the ruse of being her fiancé to help her temporarily tide over the crisis. In reality, the risks you bore were even greater. How many people could afford to be Kyosora's fiancé? Seeing Kyoesora worrying about you, you smiled comfortingly. Don't worry, I can handle it. Just those short 8 words inexplicably gave Kyoesora a great sense of security. Ever since you appeared, every time she encountered a problem, you seemed capable of resolving it lightly, and life seemed a bit more interesting compared to before. You didn't drive straight home. Instead, you parked the car in front of a farmer's market. Wait for me in the car for a moment, I'm going to buy some groceries. Kyoesora couldn't remember the last time she had set foot in a place like a farmer's market. It seemed it was when she was a young child holding her father's hand. I'm going too. You didn't refuse. Kyoesora put on her sunglasses and followed you out of the car. The environment of the farmer's market was relatively dirty and messy, but Kyoesora didn't mind. Following behind you gave her an inexplicable sense of guilt. What do you want to eat? Anything is fine, I'm not a picky eater. Kyoesora smiled faintly. She just wanted to experience this atmosphere full of everyday neighborhood flavor. You shopped for groceries very meticulously, carefully selecting every single vegetable. This was a habit you had formed over the years. Help me buy some cucumbers, Kyoesora said, seeing some cucumbers to the side and pointing at them. You squatted on the ground, raised your gaze, and looked at her. To eat or to use? Kyoesora was startled, not reacting in time. How do you use them? Thicker ones or thinner ones? Your voice came again. Now Kyoesora was even more disoriented. Thicker or thinner? Better get thicker ones then. Good for eating and good for using, you muttered to yourself while picking them out. Kyoesora was completely thrown into disorder by the breeze, thinking, what wild nonsense are you babbling on about? Soon, you picked out 3 cucumbers, stood up, and looked calmly at Kyoesora. 3 should be enough, right? You noticed Kyoesora not only hadn't responded, but her face was also somewhat red. What's wrong? Then let's get 2 more. Enough. Enough. Who could eat that many? Then why didn't you say so earlier? I thought you were taking them to use. You handed the cucumbers to the vendor. Actually, if you're eating them, thinner ones are better. Thinner ones are crunchier, while thicker ones are better for use. When sliced big, a few slices are enough to put on your face. What you said is right. Everything you say is right. Kyoesora realized she had overthought things, but in this kind of situation, she definitely couldn't explain. Once you explain, it's over. It's a bit hot. Kyoesora fanned her face with her hand, a tactical evasion. Let's go buy a few crabs and then we'll head back. You looked at Kyoesora quizzically, thinking, with this gentle breeze blowing, where on earth is it hot? You led Kyoesora to the seafood section. The environment here was even messier, with water stains all over the ground, making it hard for Kyoesora to find a place to step for a moment. But she didn't mind these things. She just slightly raised the hems of her pants, then squatted down beside a seafood pool following you. How do you pick these blue crabs? What kind counts as fat? Kyoesora asked you, looking curiously. You casually grabbed a crab and said with a smile, you flip it over. Look at this position on its abdomen. If it's hard and has a bulging feeling, then it's fatter. Kyoesora was speechless. Why was your phrasing when picking a crab also so improper? Give it a pinch. Kyoesora felt her face, which had just cooled down, grow hot all over again. You remained nonchalant and even let her try it herself. Kyoesora hesitantly reached out her hand, then felt toward the blue crab's abdomen. However, at that moment she suddenly let out a shriek and violently flung the crab away. It turned out the rubber band on the crab's claw had slipped off, and it clamped right onto her tender skin. Her hand was far too delicate. With just that pinch, fresh blood immediately welled out. You hastily grabbed her hand and instinctively sucked the wound into your mouth. The air seemed to stall for a moment right then. This guy sucked on it way too naturally. You really had just reacted out of pure reflex, because this kind of thing would also happen with Hina. If today's incident had happened to Hina, she probably would have beaten you to it and sucked her own wound before you could. Only after sucking on the wound did you realize the person in front of you wasn't your daughter. But you didn't let go immediately. After sucking for a bit and seeing the bleeding stop, you said with a straight face, Saliva has disinfectant properties. I really thank you a lot. Kyoe Sora felt her face burning hot. Does it hurt? There was a convenience store right nearby, so you immediately bought a box of Band-Aids and then carefully applied one to her wound. Luckily, hands weren't of much use to you anyway. Kyoe Sora felt a surge of anger. What did that mean? Hands weren't of much use. If you don't know how to talk, then don't talk. That's not quite accurate. To be precise, seeing her hovering on the verge of an outburst, you quickly put on a serious expression. Pay attention to the wound later. If there's swelling or purpling, make sure to tell me immediately. Although most of the time getting pricked by seafood is fine, accidental bacterial infections do happen, especially since pampered ones like Kyoe Sora have been protected in a greenhouse for too long. Why blame me? Kyoe Sora originally wanted to say, if it weren't for your wild talk, could I have gotten distracted? But thinking back, maybe she was just overthinking it. At that moment, however, you suddenly took hold of her hand, pulling her uninjured hand tightly into the palm of your own. What is he trying to do? Kyoe Sora looked at you with a gentle gaze as she let you lead her toward where the car was parked. Keep your expression natural. Make it look like you're deeply in love with me, you said calmly, looking straight ahead. Kyoe Sora didn't react in time, feeling her heart flutter wildly. What does he mean? Taking advantage of me and still demanding so much? But soon Kyoe Sora understood what was going on. It turned out you had spotted a paparazzo, and you swaggered all the way with Kyoe Sora, right up in front of that paparazzo, took out your phone, looked calmly at him, and pointed at his device. The other party never expected that even though he had shot so covertly, he would still be caught red-handed. He could only look at you awkwardly and pull out his phone with trembling hands. You took the phone, opened the photo gallery to check the pictures and videos he had taken, and then handed the phone back to him. The other party was completely stunned. Not even smashing it? Not even asking for a token of compensation? Keep up the good work. With those words, you pulled the bewildered Kyoe Sora and turned around to leave. The person was left standing frozen in place, staring blankly at you, doubting reality. Is that really it? By now, you had already publicly announced yourself as Kyoe Sora's fiancé. Being photographed showing affection like this was something you actually welcomed so it would get spread everywhere. It was entirely beneficial and caused you no harm at all. Kyoe Sora, however, was somewhat amazed by your counter-surveillance skills. Once she sat in the car, she couldn't help asking, how did you spot him? Actually, this was an ability retained from your past life. You could practically recognize paparazzi at a single glance. Then you just let him walk away like that? We didn't do anything wrong. Then can you let go of my hand now? I thought it was the gear shift. After finishing lunch, Kyoe Sora went back to the recording room and started singing Meeting once again. You sat quietly in the living room listening, but your brow remained slightly furrowed. An hour later, Kyoe Sora came out of the recording room with her willow-like brows slightly knitted, evidently dissatisfied with her own performance. This song really is difficult. The gentle melody makes the pitch hard to control. If you're not careful, you might slip up. Even though it's very subtle and the audience might not necessarily notice it, I don't want it to be like that. Do you think I should keep adjusting my breathing points? Is something not quite right with the current ones? Having witnessed your strength, Kyoe Sora instinctively sought your opinion after coming out. Your breathing points are fine and your pitch is fine. However, you gave her an unexpected answer. Kyoe Sora stared at you in astonishment. Fine? I feel like there's a problem. Otherwise, why does it always feel a bit off? The problem lies right there. Ah? I don't quite understand. Kyoe Sora blinked, her expression growing even more puzzled. Because you're using too many techniques. The traces of showing off skills are a bit heavy. This is a mistake many singers easily fall into. When a songwriter writes a certain song, they actually don't think too much. They just want to use music to express their inner feelings. But often, the people who cover these songs apply too much embellishment, causing it to lose its original flavor. Some songs require you to experience them. To experience them, not to imitate them. Calm down first, carefully read the lyrics of this song, experience its mood, and see if you can immerse yourself in it. You had already written the lyrics down on paper and handed it to her. Kyoe Sora took the lyrics, looked at the words on the page, and slowly began to ponder. With less than 3 days left until the live broadcast recording of The Voice of Heaven's Thorn, and tomorrow being the final deadline for track arrangement, The production team would soon arrange stage lighting and a series of other matters based on the tracks provided by the singers. After a few days of practice, Kiyosora already knew this song inside and out, yet she still couldn't sing it with the feeling she wanted. That missing element felt like an insurmountable hurdle that she just couldn't cross. This also drastically increased her psychological pressure, causing her to sit by the balcony on multiple occasions, looking out at the sea and feeling deeply dejected. You didn't disturb her, nor did you offer her any more opinions. In other words, there were no more opinions to give. Whether a song can truly be comprehended depends entirely on the singer themselves. At the same time, this also made you realize a certain issue. Thus, you went to your room and called Shosuke, fellow judge of The Voice of Heaven's Thorn. Brother Shosuke, according to the competition rules of The Voice of Heaven's Thorn, can two singers sing the same song? Sing the same song? The rules don't explicitly forbid singing the same song, but in the 2 seasons of the show, this has never happened before. If 2 singers perform the same song, isn't that practically a direct battle against each other? That's way too thrilling. Hearing this, you said excitedly, "If it's allowed, that's all I need."